As I glanced around the nearly empty room, I asked, "Are you ready to leave yet?" My companion sighed, their voice tinged with relief, "Just waiting for the movers." I smirked, masking the bitterness in my tone. "Honestly, I won't miss you, or the way you changed the locks, like I'd try to break in. A bit dramatic, don't you think?" The precaution had always puzzled me, but at this point, it hardly mattered. When I first met Kevin, he was a quiet, thoughtful man, always anxious about what others thought of him. After marriage, he became the textbook definition of a henpecked spouse, bending to expectations that weren't even his. A week after I moved into my new place, Kevin showed up, frantic. "It's me, open the door," he pleaded, his voice trembling. Feigning ignorance, I peered through the peephole and hesitated before responding coolly, "I think you've got the wrong person. I'm Carol, a 34-year-old part-time worker navigating the third year of my marriage to Kevin. We don't have children, but I once believed we could find happiness together." In the early days, we'd stay up late, exchanging dreams for the future, both novices at love. We were tentative but seemed to enjoy each other's company. "Let's be one of those couples who grows old together," I suggested one night. Kevin smiled. "I like that idea. Maybe 3 kids, a boy and a girl, for sure." "That's exactly what I was thinking," I replied, charmed by his sincerity. At the time, those light-hearted conversations felt like the start of something special. Meeting Kevin had been unexpected. At a party I attended out of obligation, he was there for the same reason. We bonded over our mutual disinterest in the event and gradually became friends. He was serious, a bit reserved, but his kindness stood out. I never expected a proposal. "Carol, will you marry me?" he asked suddenly. "I want to make you happy." "What? We're not even dating," I stammered, caught off guard. "I know, but I'm certain about you," he said, unwavering. His certainty didn't push me away. It made me wonder if a future with him could be worth pursuing. "If you're sure about this, then yes." His joy was immediate, his grin contagious. I felt like life had nudged me towards something extraordinary. We married 2 months later, rushing into a commitment fueled by optimism, but it wasn't long after we moved in together that reality began to diverge from my expectations. One evening, Kevin approached me, unusually serious. "Carol, I need to talk to you about something important," he began. "What is it?" I asked, sensing his unease. He hesitated, then said, "I think you should quit your job and stay home." The suggestion floored me. He'd never expressed an issue with my working before. "Why would you ask that?" I asked, trying to make sense of his sudden shift. "When you work, I feel unneeded," he admitted. "Did someone put this idea in your head?" "No, but at my office, all the other men's wives stay home. It's just how things are," he explained. From the beginning, I'd been clear that I intended to keep working, especially since we needed to save for the future we'd planned. "Kevin, we agreed I'd work after we got married. What's changed?" I asked. "It's not about us, it's about how people see me. They'll think I'm not doing my job as a husband," he said, more concerned with appearances than our happiness. "Why don't we just pretend I've quit? There's no need to actually leave my job," I countered, reluctant to give up my career. He wasn't convinced. "If you don't, I'll be ridiculed. Please, Carol, just do this for me. I can't decide something like this right away. Let me think about it," I said, buying time. "Fine," he replied, his tone sharp, "but don't take too long." His ultimatum left me uneasy. Later, I sought advice from Madison, my boss and mentor. She'd faced a similar dilemma with a controlling ex-husband, eventually divorcing him. "That must have been difficult," I said, reflecting on her resilience. "It was," Madison admitted, "but I realized staying in a marriage where I couldn't be myself wasn't worth it." Her words resonated. "I don't plan to quit," I told her, "but maybe I can negotiate something, like reducing my hours to part-time, at least for now." "That sounds reasonable," Madison said, "and if he still objects, you'll know this isn't just about work. You deserve a partner who supports you." Her advice strengthened my resolve. Kevin's transformation after marriage had caught me off guard, but I wasn't ready to let his insecurities dictate my life. I couldn't help but wonder if I had been misled all along. Despite countless discussions, Kevin and I remained at a frustrating impasse. "Isn't it a woman's role after marriage to support her husband and manage the household?" Kevin argued. clinging to notions that felt straight out of another century. What era are you living in? These days, most couples both contribute financially, I countered, appalled by his outdated mindset. Maybe that's true for others, but we're different, can't you see that? He pressed, his tone imploring but unyielding. I understand your perspective, but I can't agree with it, I said firmly, refusing to concede my independence. Kevin's pleas soon turned into relentless pressure. Day after day, he insisted I quit my job, refusing to accept my refusal. Finally, after consulting Madison, my boss, I came up with a compromise. On paper, I resigned from my position to appease Kevin, but in reality, I continued working part-time, 4 days a week. Madison, understanding my predicament, graciously adjusted my schedule to make it possible. I've resigned, just like you wanted, I informed Kevin one evening, hiding the truth. Really? Thank you, Carol, now I can feel more secure at work, he said, his relief palpable. It was clear then, Kevin's actions were driven less by love or partnership and more by his concern for appearances. I deceived him, hoping to preserve both my autonomy and our fragile relationship, but the charade left me uneasy. Kevin's need for control didn't stop there. One day, he surprised me with another demand. A junior colleague is coming over tonight. I need you to host, he announced abruptly. You didn't mention this earlier, I said, taken aback. Sorry, it was a last-minute decision, just keep it simple, okay? Get everything ready, he replied, dismissing my confusion with a quick exit. Determined to make the best of it, I prepared drinks and snacks for the evening, but when Kevin arrived with his guest, his dissatisfaction was immediate. Is this all you've done? I told you to prepare for today, he said, scowling. You asked me to keep it simple. What's the issue? I asked, genuinely baffled. This is basic, too basic. It reflects poorly on me. I need you to step up and fulfill your role as my wife, he snapped, his tone dripping with condescension. His expectations only escalated. Weekly gatherings became the norm, each one more elaborate than the last, with Kevin basking in the praise of his guests while I handled everything behind the scenes. Kevin, this is becoming excessive. Do we really need to host so often? I asked one day. Yes, everyone enjoys it, and it's important. You're my wife, Carol, supporting me is your duty, he said dismissively. The financial strain of these gatherings was evident, but Kevin dismissed any concerns I raised as nagging. How am I supposed to manage all this? I asked, frustrated. Figure it out, he replied, his indifference cutting. My days became a relentless cycle of housework and part-time shifts, with barely a moment to breathe. Work was my only reprieve, a brief escape from the ever-growing demands at home. You seem worn out lately, are you okay? Deborah, my co-worker, asked one afternoon, her concern genuine. Just a bit tired, I admitted, grateful for her empathy. Deborah had been my confidant, aware of my secret part-time job and the growing tension at home. Her support was a lifeline in the midst of my struggles. But Kevin grew uneasy about my bond with Deborah, and his discomfort soon culminated in an unsettling revelation. Where's Deborah? She's not here, I asked one day, noticing her absence. I moved her, Kevin said casually. What do you mean, moved her? I asked, my voice rising in alarm. She's in a facility now. It's better this way, more space for us, he replied, as if it were the most logical decision in the world. I was stunned. Deborah, his aging mother, had been capable of living independently. It was clear he had sent her away, not out of concern for her well-being, but to assert control over our home. When I visited Deborah, she greeted me with a weary smile. I'm sorry it came to this, I said, guilt pressing on my chest. It's not your fault, she reassured me. I'll manage. You've always been kind to me, Carol. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask. Her resilience brought me to tears, but her absence only deepened the isolation I felt. As Kevin's behavior grew more erratic, his disregard for me became undeniable. He imposed arbitrary rules, insisting I wait up for him no matter how late he stayed out. On those nights, I began to notice the faint scent of perfume lingering on his clothes, sweet and unmistakably feminine. One evening, I overheard him on the phone. She doesn't suspect a thing, a woman's voice said. When are you leaving her? Soon, I'll kick her out eventually, Kevin replied, his words like a dagger. I felt numb, His betrayal was no longer a suspicion but a painful reality. As we neared the 3rd anniversary of our marriage, Kevin blindsided me once again. "I have a business trip the day after tomorrow. Get everything ready," he announced abruptly. "That's such short notice," I protested, but he had already turned away, indifferent as always. "I'll be away for about 4 days. Make sure my clothes are ready," Kevin instructed abruptly. The suddenness of his so-called business trip immediately raised my suspicions. I recalled a conversation with the wife of one of his colleagues at a company gathering. She had warned me, "Be cautious if he suddenly mentions a business trip. Our company doesn't even organize those." Her words echoed in my mind as I pieced everything together. My suspicions were confirmed when I accidentally stumbled upon a chat on Kevin's phone, carelessly left in the living room. It revealed he had taken paid leave under the guise of this trip, and the details of his plans with his mistress were laid bare. This discovery marked the breaking point. Armed with proof of his affair, I decided to confront him with divorce papers upon his return, but Kevin made the first move. "Are you ready to leave? The movers will be here soon," he announced coldly as he walked through the door. "What are you talking about?" I asked, stunned by his abruptness. "I need you out of the house before I get back," he stated bluntly, his tone devoid of emotion. "You can't just spring this on me and expect me to leave immediately," I countered, barely able to process the situation. "Fine, I'll give you some time, but start packing," he said dismissively. And with that, he left, his final words chilling in their callousness. "Goodbye. Honestly, the thought of not having to see your face again is a relief." In that moment, the man I had once loved, timid, caring, and eager to please, felt like a distant memory. Any hope I had of salvaging our marriage shattered completely. Before the movers arrived, I packed my belongings and left. That same day, I called my lawyer and filed for divorce. To my astonishment, Kevin had the audacity to flaunt his relationship with his mistress on social media. His posts were brazen, drawing comments from mutual friends who noticed the glaring signs of infidelity. After moving out, I transitioned back to full-time work and rented a high-rise apartment in the suburbs. It was everything I had dreamed of, spacious, serene, and completely my own. Free from Kevin's control, I finally began to reclaim my life. One morning, about a month later, the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Peering through the monitor, I froze. Kevin stood outside, looking disheveled but still exuding his usual arrogance. "Hey, it's me, Kevin, open up, Carol," he called, as if nothing had happened. I decided to play along, feigning ignorance. Who are you?" "I think you've got the wrong address," I replied through the intercom. "Don't play games, it's me, your husband," he said, a mix of annoyance and desperation in his voice. "I'm sorry, but I'm not married. You must have mistaken me for someone else," I replied coolly. "Stop messing around. Listen, I've been deceived, and I need your help," he pleaded, his tone softening. "I'm not obligated to help you. If you persist, I'll have to call the police," I retorted firmly. Kevin's confidence faltered as he realized I was serious. "You don't have to be so harsh. Can't we talk this through?" he whimpered, but his attempts at manipulation no longer fazed me. "Kevin, we're done. Don't contact me again," I said, shutting him out once and for all. Kevin's downfall was swift. The divorce settlement awarded me approximately $410,000, and I retained ownership of the house, thanks to Deborah's unexpected support. Before leaving, she had transferred the property into my name, ensuring Kevin could no longer use it as leverage. His mistress, unsurprisingly, abandoned him once his financial resources dried up. To add insult to injury, Kevin's company discovered his affair after his reckless social media posts. Facing mounting scrutiny and humiliation, he resigned. As for me, I've moved on. The divorce, though painful, was a blessing in disguise. I'm focused on my career and thriving in my newfound independence. My bond with Deborah remains strong, and I'm embracing the freedom to live life on my terms. If there's one thing I've learned from this ordeal, it's that endings are often new beginnings in disguise. And this time, I'm determined to write my own story, one filled with hope, strength, and boundless opportunities.